Hello friends, in this video I would like to walk you through the process of editing moody woodland images. I will be using Capture One since this is my favorite software to edit raw photos, but you can also use Lightroom. Today I will be using 3 photos I took yesterday in mountains in Poland, and will be trying to create the faded, even sort of horror film like look, and I will show you on a quick preview before and after this photo, this one, and the last one here. As you can see, they are pretty similar but not the same, and I will show you all of these 3 styles today. So let's start with the first one. It has cold highlights and warmer shadows, but still is very desaturated. I will show you step by step what I did to achieve this look. I didn't change much in exposure and contrast tab, but I lowered the highlight definitely, so that I have more detail in bright areas of the photo. I also slightly increased shadows and added some whites to naturally boost the contrast. I also added a little bit of black to make this a bit faded. What I did, I also lowered clarity and slightly structure, because I don't want unnecessary detail. I want my photo to look like a painting, like a movie, more like old movie. I don't like my images to be too sharp. Another very important aspect of the editing process is tone curve. What I did is I let's say crushed the blacks by moving this bottom part of this line slightly towards top, and I made it look like an S shape. I slightly boosted the highlights here and darkened the shadow. I also added a little bit of vignette to add focus to the central area. Now let's move to the color tab. In color editor tab, in Lightroom it's called HSL. I didn't change much in red and oranges, but I moved yellows towards orange and moved greens towards yellow and desaturated them a lot. And I slightly changed the, let's say, aqua towards green and desaturated as well. In color balance, which is like split toning in Lightroom, I added a little bit of blue to the highlights, as you can see here. And in shadows, I added a little bit of orange. In this photo, colors are slightly more rich and it's a bit more contrasty. As you can see in this exposure tab, I lowered the brightness, added a little bit of contrast. I also lowered highlights as in the previous photo, but a little bit less, and I also lowered shadows a little bit. Of course, I added a bit to the whites to emphasize the fog, which I love in this photo, and I also decreased the blacks a little bit. I lowered clarity and structure even more to make it more look like a painting. I also added a little bit of vignette to focus on fog and my friend in the middle of that. In color settings, I pushed oranges a little bit towards reds and yellows a little bit towards oranges. In greens section, I pushed a little bit towards yellow, I made it warmer, and desaturated a little bit. I didn't desaturate photo as much as the previous one, as we can see. As we can see in these trees and plants. In color balance tab, I basically reversed what I did in the last photo. So I made the shadows cooler by adding a little bit of blue to them, and made highlights slightly warmer, which looks, in my opinion, very interesting in this fog. And the last look I would like to show you today is that, let's name it Scandinavian Thriller, which is very desaturated and relies mostly on cool colors, mostly blue. So I definitely lowered the temperature. In exposure tab I didn't change much, but I lowered exposure a little bit. I lowered contrast, the same as brightness, and definitely saturation, over 30 points here. I also lowered the highlights and added a little bit of white because of the fog, and also lowered blacks a little bit, same as in clarity and structure. Tone curve looks pretty similar, but it's not as curved as we did in previous examples, but it's like and it only has these crushed faded blacks, and the rest is pretty much straight. Also, I added more vignettes than in previous photos to make it look even more, let's say, cinematic. In colors tab, I made the yellows cooler by pushing them towards greens and desaturated them a lot. Pretty similar thing with greens. I also pushed them more towards aqua, but not as much as I did with yellows, and also desaturated them. When it comes to aquas, I pushed them more towards blue. And I think the most important aspect of editing this kind of images is color balance. So I added a little bit of deep blue in shadows and a bit more teal to highlights. Okay, I kindly thank you for watching today's video. As you can see, I saved my presets that we did today and applied them to the rest of the photos I took on my yesterday's trip. You can do it by saving this as a style in Capture One, or by saving this as preset in Lightroom. If you'd like to see more videos like that, please let me know in the comments or DM me. I'd appreciate any kind of feedback. Thank you very much, and see you again.